hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making an incense holder. Well, there are those that would say that incense is a thing of the past, but incense is making a comeback, and there are a lot of people that are burning incense in their home instead of other types of air fresheners. So on today's show, I thought as a simple fun little project, we would make an incense holder to burn your sticks of incense. But how does it start? It starts by picking our stock. So I've chosen my stock, and what I've chosen is a piece of walnut. And this is roughly 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches by roughly 14 inches long. You can play with those dimensions. You don't have to do it exactly like this. What you need to do first is choose which is the top and which is the bottom. And for this piece of walnut, there are some imperfections in this section here. So I'm going to make them the bottom. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to route out in this section here a 12-inch mortise that is roughly 7/8 of an inch deep and I don't know, maybe 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch wide. So I have my straight bit set. I have my stops roughly set. We can fine tune that after our first pass. But what I've done is I've just roughly set the fence for the center, because as I place this down onto the bit and route across, we're then going to reverse it 180 degrees and plunge it down onto the bit and run it across. And that will ensure that whatever size hole or mortise we end up with here in the stock is exactly centered where we want it. As well, once I get that pass made, I'll be able to see which side is, too far or that sort of thing. I've only roughly set these stops, so I'll be able to fine tune that as well after the first pass. So let's get that first pass done and stop talking about it. Well, it doesn't happen very often, but I fluked it and got it pretty much perfectly centered right off the bat. So I'm going to continue to raise this bit up and get our groove or our mortise so that it is 7/8 of an inch deep. Well, at this point, at each end of the mortise now, we want to draw a line because we're going to square off this mortise. We don't want it rounded. So just place your square, just like that. Draw a quick line. And for here, you can use a ruler and just span it across your routed edge and extend the lines out to your square lines that you just drew. Then you want to take a sharp chisel. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch, and we're just going to chop this down so that we square off our mortise. Well, now the next thing you need is a slot cutting bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this bit into the end here where our mortise is, and I'm going to have it raised approximately 3/16 up from the bottom, and I'm going to run it right through end to end and right out the opposite end. But you don't want it to tear outside. You want to leave a bit of material. So we just want basically a dado on the inside of each one of these walls, about 3/16 of an inch down from the top here. Now, before you can route that slot, however, or that dado, you're going to have to carve away some of this material here to give room for the shank of our bit, because it's going to end up hitting right here on the top. So I've used that slot bit to mark how far down I need to carve into this, and we'll just use a knife here to give us a clean edge, and then using our 1/2 inch chisel again, we'll just chisel that away to make room for the shank of our bit. And with that side done, we'll just continue and do the opposite end. Well, what I've done is I've carefully measured the slot that I've made here in the end of our stock. And truth be told, I raised the bit up another little bit to make a thicker groove or a thicker dado. And then I cut a piece of walnut that fits in there from end to end. I still need to end trim it. At first it was a little tight, so I used a block plane and just fine-tuned it so that it fit nicely. And now that we have it like this, we can take it over to the table saw, and I'm just going to cut it flush and level with our entire incense holder. And now that we have it cut flush, what you have essentially created here in the bottom of your incense holder is a storage compartment to hold your incense sticks. So if you like, you can drill a through finger hole in the ends over here to make it easier to pull out. I'm not going to bother because it's pretty easy just to hook your finger there and give it a little push. It's snug, but it's not crazy tight, so you really don't need the finger hole. So we're going to take the chisel now, clean up any imperfections along the sides, and once you get that done, we're going to flip it over and we need to create our groove in the top for our ashes. So in order to cut the recess for the ashes, you're going to want to use some kind of bit, like a hollowing bit, like what this is here. This is almost like a bowl bit. And we're just going to make a recess centered on the top, not all the way through. We'll leave about 1 inch of material, 1.5 inches of material at either end. And we're going to make a groove that's approximately 1/8 of an inch deep. It doesn't have to be crazy deep. There's not a lot of ashes from an incense stick. So about 12 inches long and 1/8 of an inch deep. So with that recess now routed in there, we're just going to take a piece of sandpaper, soften the edges of the recess as well as all of the sharp edges of the walnut on the corners. So give your incense burner or your stand or whatever you want to call it, give it a good sanding. And then there's one more thing left to do here, and that's drill a hole for the incense rod to be in while it's burning. So now what we're going to do is at the end, one end of our recess here, at about a 20-degree angle. Now this isn't, you don't need to measure it. Just picture it as your incense stick coming up out of this kind of trajectory from how you're aiming here. You'll want to center it on your groove and make sure that it's kind of at the right angle, just like that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to drill a 3/16 of an inch diameter hole about 1/2 an inch deep. And that should probably do it right there. Now if we want, we can test it with an incense stick just to make sure that it's going to seat in there properly. And if it doesn't, you can always drill it just a little bit deeper. And we can see that that sits there just nice. So I guess there's really nothing left to do with this project other than spark it up. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. And I just want to point out that this compartment that you so nicely routed out and chiseled can now house all of your extra incense sticks. So you can just place them in there just like that and close them up. And there you go. All in one. And there you have it. An incense holder. Guys, this project is a lot of fun for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it's mostly done on the router table, so it gives me a chance to play with my router table a little more. I haven't gotten that much of an opportunity to use it since I bought it, but this is strongly a router table project. The hand tools, fine-tuning the cover with a block plane and using a chisel to square out your opening and shear off the one section to allow for the shank of the router bit. And its functionality. It is extremely functional. So what if you don't have a router table? Well, if you don't have a router table, I don't want you to worry about it because you can do this completely with hand tools. 100%. You can chisel out that mortise. You can square it off with the chisel because you're chiseling. You can do the groove with a chisel as well, or if you don't have that ability or you don't think you're that good to do it, glue up a piece to fit on top, to fit over your mortise so that you can slide your lid in there. That top recess, there's no reason you can't do that with carving chisels or even with sandpaper. Guys, there's always another method if you don't have the tools that I show you on this show. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed today's program. It's been a lot of fun for me. As always, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the notifications of future programs. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in this week, and I hope you're going to join me next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.